Critical testimony today in the murder trial of this former Jacksonville man, Michael Haim. He's charged with killing his wife Bonnie back in 1993 when the couple lived on the north side. So far today, much of the testimony has focused on the investigation of the crime conducted by law enforcement.
Detectives have been grilled by defense attorneys on why they failed to find the dead woman's remains, which were accidentally discovered by Bonnie Haim's adult son years after the murder. News 4 Jax reporter Scott Johnson is joining us live from the courthouse with an update on this second day of dramatic testimony. Scott?
Tom, all these police and investigators have been witnesses for the prosecution. Each one who goes up, the defense lawyers have been really hammering on maybe a lack of evidence at times, or in other cases, if the evidence they have is enough to convict Michael Haim. Much of today's testimony is centered around the various things found in the 2 years central to this case. First, there are the investigators who first looked into Bonnie Haim's disappearance in 1993. They focused on many things, like her purse found at this Red Roof Inn. There was also a focus on her car. Prosecutors argue the driver's seat in the car, which was abandoned at the airport, had been adjusted for someone the height of a man, too far back for Bonnie Haim. But defense lawyers argue there wasn't proof of how tall the driver was. Much was also made today of this footprint on the floorboard and whether it matched Michael Haim's shoes.
Tennis shoes or running shoes.
And was that of interest to you based on your processing of the Toyota Camry?
Yes.
Is this a photograph at your lab of those same shoes?
It is, yes.
There was also a lot of talk about this spot outside the house, the spot where Bonnie's remains were found buried. In 1993, the area was essentially glossed over and the pallet on the ground was never moved, and the bottles of bleach, thought to be used for pool cleaning, were on top. Then later on, the focus moved on to this same plot of land in 2014 when her remains were accidentally dug up. Defense lawyers asked about the amount of soil samples the now retired JSO investigator had tested, arguing that 2 samples never got tested.
Well, did you call anybody after that deposition to say, oh, I made a mistake, I took 4 samples?
No.
But you came in here today, 3 years later, and you remember now that you took 4 samples, correct?
I'm going by what the report says, yes.
Also some talk about Bonnie Haim's fingernails. She had her nails done prior to her death. There's talk of whether or not her nails were acrylic and did not disintegrate and were still there with her remains, and whether or not there were any fingernail clippings or residue near the trunk of her car. Also, whether or not there were fingerprints tested on the trunk of her car. A lot of little things that could play a role in developing the prosecution's case discussed today. And we're live downtown at the courthouse. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.
Scott, Monday you were in the courtroom during jury selection when the defense attorney spoke at length about the use of jailhouse snitches and why that might be an issue in this trial. So we now know, don't we, why Tom Fallis, Haim's lawyer, brought that up.
He did bring it up for 2 very important witnesses, both inmates over at the Duval County Jail. Both came out today and said, Michael Haim confessed to me that he murdered his wife while he was in jail. The defense had a field day with these witnesses. We'll have much more on that coming up tonight at 6. Back to you.
Scott Johnson reporting live from downtown. Scott, we'll see you again at 6. Thank you.